Hello again, everyone. This is the next video for our next study unit. This is also just to give you an idea of what you need to be able to master so that you can work through it before our class, and our class will then just help bring together everything you need to know. So please make sure that you understand what is expected of you and what you need to be able to do. So I'm going to stop my video and share my screen again so that you can follow what we need to be able to master. If we look at this, what do I expect you to do at home? I need you to read through the ethics notes on page 13 and also work through the page 17 of your workbook and make sure that you see the bigger picture of chapter 1. So make sure you go and look at that chapter summary and the knowledge diagnostics for chapter 1 at the end of each one of those chapters. This chapter specifically, we will be looking at the financial reporting framework. So you need to understand that there was a new framework that was brought into existence, the 2018 framework. It tells us how to present financial statements, what's conceptual, what is the financial reporting, what do we need to know, what's the basis on how we prepare financial statements. So please go and work through this specific sections and make sure you understand the revised conceptual framework, what's the purpose, what's the content, and you will see that we will get to discussing some of these areas specifically. So I want you to understand what's the objective of the financial reporting, the general objective from the different perspectives. You will see we will work through some questions, but you need to understand what is meant with each one of these qualitative characteristics. You need to know what relevance, materiality, faithful presentation. Make sure you understand why it is relevant for our financial information. You also need to see that there's enhancing qualitative characteristics like comparability, verifiability, timeliness, and understandability. So make sure you understand this, because I can ask this when I give you information from a discussion point of view. Okay. So we need to see when we talk about our financial statements, that I need to see that there's a definition, a new definition for an asset according to our IAS 1 2018 and the conceptual framework. The same with liabilities, a new definition. So I need to make sure I understand those definitions of assets, liabilities, and equity. And the same with income and expenses. Make sure I understand the definitions. And then the recognition criteria also change. So make sure you understand the recognition criteria of each one of those 5 elements within my financial statements. So make sure you understand where an asset, a liability, and equity is presented, where income and expenses is presented, and make sure you understand that the recognition criteria has changed. So work through those recognition criteria, because I can always ask you to apply that to a specific scenario. When can something be recognized? And then you need to see that I need to comply with the definition first. And once I have made the definition, I have of an asset, a liability, or equity. So I have an asset, I have a liability, or equity. Once I meet those definitions, or also income or expense, once I've met my definition, my next point of reference is I need to go and look at my recognition criteria, and I need to make sure that that applies. And once my recognition criteria is applicable, at the end of the day, once that is done, I can now start recognizing information within my financial statements. So make sure you understand the flow of that, and then also make sure that there are certain things that you need to know about measurement bases, what's meant by historical costs, fair values, current cost of an asset, current values. So you also need to work through certain other aspects. And the way I can ask you for this is I can ask you how they expect us to account for certain information in financial statements. Do I agree with it? Is there ethical issues with the recognition that I propose, etc., etc.? So make sure you understand how the financial statements and IAS 1 and the presentation of financial statements and the conceptual framework fits into it. And it will not necessarily be asked on its own, but I can give you suggestions that a client would want to suggest, and then see if you understand how to answer those specific questions. So I'm just going to go back and make sure you understand The most important part for me is to know that you understand what is the qualitative characteristics at the end of the day. And then once we get to that, I need to see that my definitions is important for assets, liabilities, equity, income and expense, and then my recognition criteria so that I know when I can recognize certain items. So make sure you go and work through IAS 1 again in detail. Make sure you go and work through the new conceptual framework, that you familiarize yourself with that, because that will help you when you need to be able to answer questions that we will ask. So go and work through it again, and make sure if there's areas that you are uncertain about, that you bring that to class once we have class, and you can ask the questions. I hope you have an awesome day. Keep well and cheers.